Today I want to take a look at the fast guitar keyboard unison from my song The Fourth Wall. And I'm going to go into how to play it, but I also want to break down how I write these ideas so you can get some tips and techniques for writing your own guitar keyboard unisons. First thing I want to do is talk about the rhythm. This section is in 21/8, and if you watched my lesson on the one rest trick which accompanied this song, I go into depth on how I created this rhythm, but essentially what we have is a group of 4 eighth notes followed by an eighth note rest, and then that happens 3 times. And then you have a group of 2 eighth notes followed by 1 eighth note rest, and that happens twice. So 4, 4, 4, 2, 2, and each one of those patterns is followed by an eighth note rest. So it sounds something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. In my masterclass lesson on this one rest trick, I talked about a variation where you double up the notes. So you take the eighth notes in this case and turn them into 16th notes. And that's what I'm doing here to accompany this more flashy section. Here's the original eighth note rhythm, and here's the doubled up 16th note variation. Now notice I'm not doubling up this last eighth note in these patterns of 4, for example. And I think it feels a little more natural to do it this way because you're not ending on an offbeat 16th note, which would look like this. Now that we've talked about the rhythm, let's take a look at the notes that I'm playing. This whole guitar keyboard unison uses the E Phrygian dominant mode, which is the 5th mode of harmonic minor. This is a really common sound for these over-the-top shreddy guitar keyboard unisons. And oftentimes I'll actually avoid using this scale because I think it's a little bit overused in this style of music, but here it worked really well, so I went for it. But before we get into this Phrygian dominant section, there's a 2 quarter note long pickup into it from the previous section. So we go from a D major chord up chromatically to E flat and then to E, where we begin the 21/8 Phrygian dominant section. The unison starts during this chromatic pickup. So what I do is over the D major chord, I play a D major arpeggio with an added ninth. And then on the E flat major chord, I just do a sweep of an E flat major arpeggio. And that sets me up for the Phrygian dominant section. So that looks like this. Alternate picking, sweeping. Earlier in the song, this 21/8 rhythm happens with a simpler melody over top of it. This is still in the Phrygian dominant mode, but it's just using the basic eighth note variation of this 21/8 rhythm. And it looks like this. And what I do in the unison is to catch some of the notes from that older melody in the fast unison, just to make it feel a little more connected with the earlier part of the song. So I'm going to lay that original simple melody over the top, and then I'll show you how I caught some of that in this faster run. So here's the first half of the unison. And what I'm doing technically is to alternate pick the first 2. The third one is a combination of sweeping and alternate picking. And the last 2 are swept. If we take a look at the original eighth note melody, the first pattern ends on a B, second pattern ends on a C and then a B, then you have B, E, A, and G sharp, then you have B to E, and C to E. So the first half of the unison catches every single one of the notes I just mentioned. B, C to B, then B, E, A, G sharp, then B to E, and C to E. So I'm using this original melody to inform how I'm writing the unison. I think with these flashy guitar keyboard unisons, it's easy just to be like, hey, I'm going to have them play straight scales or straight arpeggios. But by catching some of this earlier melody and also catching this rhythm, I'm able to make something that's flashy but also feels like it's part of the song. The second half of the unison looks like this. So in the second half, I'm still catching some of those melody notes, but I'm using these bigger arpeggios just to kind of ramp up the intensity. So we start with an E major, still end on that note B. Then we have a diminished, and I use that C to B move again. The third pattern here in the second half is probably the trickiest one to play. So I go 12, hammer on to 14, and then pick the rest. And that ends on a G sharp, just like our original melody. And then our last two sweep shapes are a little bit different than the first half, and they look like this, which is just the notes B and E. And then back up an augmented arpeggio. So those two halves of the unison repeat, but at the very end of the second half, there is a slight variation. I do these bigger arpeggios. Go down in E major, and up a D diminished, and end on the note G. The next section of the song is in G minor, so that kind of makes a pretty natural transition to G minor to hit the root note of G. So that looks like this. So I'm going to play the whole thing slowly with the pickup. So for practicing this unison, I would take each one of these fragments on their own and see if I can get them up to speed and then try to string a few together. So you have your first one. You have second one. And I'll see if I can string those two together. And that's kind of the approach I would take for the rest of them as well. So that's how I play this unison and also how I constructed it. Hopefully this was helpful for you. I know for me, when I go to write these kind of unisons, it's really easy just to go into scale mode or arpeggio mode and just have the instruments doing all this crazy flashy stuff, but not have it feel like it's connected to the song at all. But if you can catch some of the rhythms of the song and also some of the melodic ideas of the song, you can make these unisons flashy, but also feel like they're part of the song and not just like a vehicle for you to show off how good you are. If you enjoyed this lesson, subscribe, hit the bell notification, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. Till next time, stay proggy.